My name is Ariana Miller, I am 28 years old, and for most of my life I believed I was adopted. It was not something I questioned, because when a story is repeated by your own family for years, it slowly becomes your reality without needing proof. I grew up in a quiet suburban town in North Carolina where everything looked normal from the outside: clean houses, slow Sundays, church bells in the distance, and families that seemed stable. But inside my home, there was always something I could never fully understand. My mother, Susan Miller, would always remind me I was chosen. She said it so often that the word stopped sounding like love and started sounding like explanation. Chosen meant different. Chosen meant not fully part of something. Chosen meant I should be grateful for a place I never asked questions about. My brother Jason had a different life in the same house. Not openly unfair, but quietly different. He had more attention, more comfort, more space to exist without being reminded of his place. I never hated him for it, but I noticed it. Children always notice what adults think they hide. I had food, education, clothes, everything required for a normal life, but something emotional was missing, something I could not name at the time. I learned early how to stay quiet, how to observe, how to accept things without asking too much. Because every time I asked about my past, the answers were short, emotional, or avoided completely. I still remember once, as a child, asking my mother about my birth family. She didn't answer directly. She cried instead. Not a normal cry, but the kind that stops conversation. And after that moment, I learned a rule in my home: some questions are not allowed. Years passed like that. I grew up, finished school, and eventually became a medical laboratory scientist. I worked in a hospital where I tested DNA samples every day. I saw strangers come in with hope, fear, confusion, and desperation. I saw people discover truths that changed marriages, families, and identities. Some walked away relieved. Some walked away broken. I understood science deeply, but I never applied it to myself. That contradiction never bothered me, until the day everything changed. It happened at a wedding in a small suburban town in North Carolina. The kind of wedding that looks like a movie scene: white tents stretched across a green lawn, fairy lights hanging from trees, soft country music playing in the background, people smiling like life was simple. I was sitting with my Aunt Laura when she had a bit too much to drink. She leaned toward me, her voice low, almost careless, and said 7 words that I will never forget for the rest of my life. "You look exactly like David Carter." David Carter was the man I had always been told was my uncle. But the way she said it didn't feel casual. It felt heavy. Almost like she had been holding it for years and it slipped out without permission. I laughed at first, trying to ignore it, but she didn't laugh back. She just looked at me like she had already said too much. And that was the moment something inside me shifted. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just silently, like a lock turning. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every memory I had started replaying differently. The way my mother avoided certain topics. The way my Uncle David always looked at me longer than others. The way my adoption story was always told the same way, without variation, like a rehearsed script. Suddenly, things I had ignored started forming patterns I could no longer unsee. And then I did something I had never done before in my entire life. I ordered a DNA test. I told myself it was curiosity. Professional interest. Logical thinking. But deep down, I already knew I was not looking for curiosity, I was looking for confirmation of something I was afraid to admit. Let me ask you something here, honestly: have you ever felt that your instincts knew something before your logic was ready to accept it? Because that's exactly what I was experiencing. At work, I processed DNA every day. I understood probabilities, accuracy, genetic relationships. I had seen results destroy families and rebuild others. But I had always believed I was outside of that world. Observing it. Not part of it. I was wrong. When my results arrived a few days later, I opened them alone in my apartment. My hands were steady because I was trained to be calm under pressure. But my heart wasn't trained for what I was about to see. At first, I looked at ethnicity data. Normal. Nothing alarming. But then I moved to the section that mattered, the family matching. And I saw it. David Carter, parent, 50% match. I read it once. Then again. Then again, because my brain refused to accept the meaning behind the words. Everything went silent. Not emotionally silent, literally silent. Like my mind had stopped processing anything beyond. Feeling of being raised inside a story that never fully made sense. And slowly, a bigger truth started forming, not just about identity, but about secrecy, fear, and the cost of hiding reality. Eventually, everything reached a point where silence was no longer possible. We gathered as a family on a Sunday afternoon. My mother Susan, my brother Jason, my father David, and other relatives. It looked like a normal family gathering from the outside. Food on the table, casual conversation, normal atmosphere. But inside me, nothing was normal anymore. I placed the DNA results on the table. And I spoke. Calmly. Clearly. Without raising my voice. Because truth does not need volume to be powerful. At first, there was denial. My mother cried. My brother was confused and shocked. My grandmother stayed silent, unable to respond. My father lowered his head and said nothing for a long time. But silence, once exposed, loses its control. Because truth does not destroy families. Delayed truth does. And when truth finally arrives after years of silence, it doesn't just break illusions, it exposes how fragile those illusions were from the beginning. I realized something important that day. Families are not defined only by biology. They are defined by honesty, responsibility, and the ability to face reality even when it is uncomfortable. Without truth, even love becomes uncertain. After that day, nothing returned to how it was. Some relationships weakened. Some began to heal. Some changed permanently. But something new also started forming, not a perfect family, but a real one. Later, I understood something I never thought about before. People don't usually lie because they want to harm others. They lie because they are afraid of consequences, loss, judgment, or collapse of their world. But fear-based decisions, even when made with intention to protect, often create deeper damage over time. And silence, no matter how long it lasts, always has an expiration point. Now, when I look back, I don't see just betrayal or shock. I see a lesson that stayed with me deeply. Truth may arrive late, but it always arrives. And when it does, it doesn't come to destroy, it comes to correct what was built incorrectly. So I want to end with a question for you. If you discovered that your entire life story was built on hidden truth, would you still want to know it? Or would you prefer to live in comfort, even if that comfort is not real? Because sometimes, the hardest part of truth is not hearing it. It is realizing how long it was kept away from you.